Good afternoon. I'm Gary Lutz. I'm an old graduate of Maidstone College of Osteopathy. I graduated in 1988-ish. Long story, but as far as I'm concerned, osteopathy, every system of thinking has its own constructs, contractions and conceits. If osteopathy is anything, it's a system of thinking. As I studied osteopathy, I came across many lovely models and concepts: integration, black box, holism, reductionism, physiology. I wasn't so taken with anatomy because it seemed a lot of learning lists. Yes, the Latinish names told you about the site and applied anatomy, the function of the muscle, but beyond adduction, abduction, brevis and longus, I'm making a list again, it was just learning unrelated names of stuff. A little later I changed my mind, but then I graduated. One term that was given emphasis by John Wernham when he was teaching me, in my year, was conjoint lever. He'd speak of the spine as an animate beam and that we weren't with conjoint levers. The science fictional writer Larry Niven came up with a concept that humans were mutants of the breeder stage of species called pack. Breeders are stupid, and when they get to the right age they have an irresistible yen for a plant that turns into hyper-intelligent adults. The first thought on awaking from the sleep that follows eating the plant is, I've been stupid. This has been a constant in my life. I can't speak for you, but I regularly realise I've been stupid. One day I woke up and realised I'd been thinking about conjoint levers all wrong. Classical osteopathy, I'd thought, was using conjoint levers to fix patients. How stupid. How very reductionist. JW had a speech for us as first-year students. Don't panic and don't ask questions. If you have questions, write them down and come back to them in a year, and you'll see how stupid you were. Students are stupid. They don't know enough to understand their questions, let alone the answers. Nobody likes being called stupid, but you're ignorant, and that's why you have to study. By the time I'd read the 1906 version of Sherrington's Integrative Action of the Nervous System, I'd fallen in love with the ideas of integration and black box. The entire edifice of the nervous system is raised on the simple reflex, is the mantra. The afferent, the internuncial, and the efferent. The pictures are in all the books, with a fair bit of detail of input and output, and a dotted line to represent the internuncial. The internuncial is the black box, the thing that determines output. Input does not determine output. The state of the central nervous system does. Sherrington wasn't stupid, but he was trying to explain the nervous system, and he did it so well by relating and drawing together the work of so many famous researchers of the 19th century that even by the mid-1930s the vast bulk of physiology text was neurophysiology. Shame he was wrong. Well, he wasn't wrong exactly, just that explaining integration, the integration was lost on most of his audience. Well, for me, for a start. This was made obvious when, in the 1980s, a textbook that had been constructed with the idea that all a doctor needed to qualify would be in one set of fat tomes, came out with the foreword on the neurology section, getting Sherrington back to front, repeating the mantra without realising the black box concept was integral to understanding. The black box idea had gone out of fashion as it was realised that for better understanding of the actions of the CNS, to allow further investigations, the God knows, the conjoint of the whole had to be discarded. Before this descends into a Four Yorkshiremen's Monty Python, look it up, it's on YouTube if you don't know, of what I did in school, or why Gary was stupid, the question arises, what is osteopathy? Neurophysiology was so simple, so logical, it made so much sense, and the people around me who hadn't read the book seemed so unaware. So if neurophysiology is simple, so is osteopathy, surely. So what is osteopathy? Anything that's in accord with the osteopathic principles is osteopathy. Anything done for osteopathic reasons is osteopathy. But anything done by osteopaths, is that osteopathy? Probably not. Funny that, because it's in statute. Osteopathy is a broad church because over the years people have come to it with their own baggage. When I trained, I came from a martial arts background, as did so many in those days, and it shapes your thoughts and actions. The psyche trained see osteopathy as a psyche discipline, and the rest of us would too if we'd only put some more effort into studying psyche. The mechanistic have the same belief as do those wedded to anatomy, physiology, embryology, cranial, mysticism, and so on and so forth. Everything and everyone is right, as far as it goes. The overarching principle in osteopathy is adjustment. There are those who insist the body is running perfectly, and at any one time it's doing what it must. I have my biggest problem with that as a concept, for evolutionary, environmental and practical reasons, but I'm sure that the people who hold to it feel happy with what they do and how to work with it in mind. I can't see that they have anything left to do that the presence of the patient in this state doesn't do for themselves. But then I don't work with the idea of keeping me working on the same patient forever for the same things, so I might be in their neighbourhood. Which brings me back to conjoint levers and eureka moments. What is a lever? One problem of using the internet as your search tool is you have to remember that while all the world's information is there, so is all the world's stupid. A lever is a rigid body, according to the internet, capable of rotating on a point on itself. On the basis of the locations of fulcrum, load and effort, the lever is divided into 3 types. This is stuff we learnt as first years. Also, a leverage is a mechanical advantage gained in a mechanical system. It's one of the 6 simple machines identified by Renaissance scientists. First-class levers have a fulcrum in the middle, between effort and resistance, while second-class levers have resistance between the fulcrum and the effort. Third-class joints are the ones that describe most joints of the body. The effort is between the resistance and the fulcrum, like the forearm. I suspect they're talking just about bony joints. Simple machines are extremely valuable to engineers and to osteopaths, since they are used to accomplish extraordinary amounts of work with ease. In particular, engineers can design a simple machine which provides a desired mechanical advantage so that work can be done more efficiently and effectively. Even the most complex machines designed by engineers today are a combination of one or more of the 6 known simple machines. The lever, pulley, wheel and axle can be found in many engineering devices, such as a crowbar, a crane and a bike. The point of all the above is to tell us about tools that amplify the work that may be done by the human. But we are a machine. We are a massively complex machine, and the 6 levers really doesn't apply. If your field is talk therapy, language is your lever, and it's applied to the load of thought and chaos that makes up the mind of your patient. The fulcrum can be quite interesting, and the outcomes vary. Even simple cranes can fall over if the circumstances are not what was first thought. Adjusting bodies is surely getting lumps to move when they don't. Conjoint moves are just lump movers, ways of thinking about moving bones in meat with a nod to the other tissues involved and letting the body get on with it. Are they not? Osteopathy is slow, except when it's quick. Slow in execution, slow to get results, which varies from tissue and the system involvements, and the pre-existing state of the patient. The neuroendocrine system, quick to respond, slow to heal, is not apart from the rest of the body, which in turn is not viable, separated from its environment. As we affect the patient in whatever way we choose, and all the ways we accidentally do, the effect is determined by the pre-existing state of that person. The patient is a black box, and when we work, we are part of their external environment. The outcomes are not solely down to us. The more we want to analyse the state of the patient to make our contribution to the state of their health safer and more effective, if the two can coexist, the more we should find complexity beyond our skills, and more we will be affected, changed by the interaction. This is somewhere I preferred not to go, hence why I avoid all the psyche stuff. Conjoint is both all the things that make up the lever and all the things acted upon, as though they could be separated. The lever is a change agent. If your treatment has value, it's through the ability to produce change. But you'll not know what change you stimulate. All input is stimulus. What comes of that stimulus depends on the state of the patient, which you cannot know. Conjoint is mental work, physical work, dietetic, exercise, anything you like as long as it's justifiable. Doing one bit works on the all. There's the rub, you see. Justifiable to whom? To a jury of your peers. We know about the value of tacit understanding, of immersing ourselves in the field and forming unique gestalts of understanding. You could call this unrelated honest quackery. Of course, the honest bit is a bit of a generous addenda in some people's cases. Wild and dangerous delusion is another. Osteopathy gives us a treatment platform. It does not give us a do-as-you-please licence. That's the point of a register and a protected title. Do as you please, but if you foul up, expect to be struck off or lose the ability to smear the rest of your ordure by association. This is part of the reason that osteopathy has seemed to fracture and fragment over the years, with different groups emphasising different things, and in an effort to distinguish themselves from the others, rejecting the rest of osteopathy. I'm classically trained. I use long levers to fix people. Modernists are idiots who massage and give their patients exercise. They're either crooks or inadequate. Cranial people are trying to fix everything for the roof, no better than reflexologists playing with the feet. In any other field, that would be ignorant racism, but we shutter ourselves away from our fellows because talking to them is uncomfortable. So much learning is. And the gulfs in our understanding too wide. Of course, theirs is too narrow. If we take up their polluted ideas, we risk diluting our purity and being like the medics, eclectic or pragmatic. I hope I don't come over like that, but I have a lot of problems with the way osteopathic treatment arises out of osteopathic theory, when people base that theory on pithy sayings or on a holy book. What we think is rarely what we end up writing, and what is understood by our readers without our context and life experiences that shade meaning, especially when those readers are decades away from us and based in different societies, often with different languages. Each of us reinvents osteopathy for ourselves to different degrees, yet each man kills the thing he loves, says Oscar Wilde. My osteopathy is not John Wernham's. His was not J.M. Littlejohn's. His was not the osteopathy of A.T. Still's. Thus, in a series of Chinese whispers, I don't work like Still. I hope I work more like Littlejohn. I'd love to be able to work like Wernham. God knows what I did to the minds of my 12 students. I don't think they got any osteopathy from me. What I do know is I find watching videos of technique irritating. Why put your hands there? Get off her neck. Really? You think that's a lever? He's wearing a watch, doing a seated lift, and so on. It's just not me, and it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable not because I'm learning anything, but really, is that the limit of how we're going to help each other? Because it is. Education is all about helping each other. And if we're going to help each other, it's to help our patients. Meh. Sounds good. So I hope this webinar makes you uncomfortable. Each sentence should be argued over. There are books full of support and refutation available. It seems to me very lightweight, but the overarching theme is simple. All treatments use conjoint levers. All treatments. As osteopaths, we just need to be aware that that's what we're doing, and then we're all classical. Long lever. One of the long lever techniques I like is this one. For testing rotation, freedom of rotation of the body. In this case, he rolls quite readily to his left and doesn't like going to the right. For the purpose of this, do you want to spin round and put your head at this end so I can show the technique from that first? So, it's not something that we don't know, it's very obvious and easy. You can put that leg, bend it a bit please, bending. That's it. You can put that leg there, like that makes it simple, but in terms of the load, gentle, this hand's doing virtually nothing. It's acting as a fulcrum, remember? And you're just bringing this across the midline. Is it? Mm-hmm. Change ends again, please. So that went with the problem. Head that way, please. And this is the counter. And this takes you back the way it didn't want to go in the first place. And you're just using the ribs as one lever. Your thumb as a fulcrum. Don't have to use the thumb, you could use the heel of your hand. But you're using the long lever of the ribs and the counter resistance of the shoulders. You turn your head to the middle again, please. So, after the technique, you could repeat the test. And now it's even easier into that plane. Woo! And it's dead easy that way too. No lever. Effortless. Make the patient's body do the work. Seated technique takes up a little bit of our work, possibly because our patients sit down a lot. They don't dare lay down. They sleep 8 hours a day or something, but if they're lucky. But they sit a lot, far too much. There's a good chance that some of their problems will arise seated. So why not treat them seated? What's the side bending like? Is it free and easy? That's not bad. But somewhat easier this way. Now, it's easier because look at the rhythm. Yeah? It's quite a short bounce. This way, whee, it takes longer. So you're using a bigger part of the spine when you swing it. So there's restriction going sideways to the right. Now in terms of rotation, that's quite nice and loose, but that's easier still. Yeah. So it likes going to the left and it likes going to the left. It both side bends and rotates to the left. Unsurprising if you hook your fingers behind your neck, please. If you take the ideas of Friat, let it go, stop doing it for yourself. If you take the ideas of Friat, then we're looking at an extension lesion, side bent and rotated to the same side. You can't reverse it without doing all sorts of things. Frankly, bounce it. Let it go. Woo, easy. If someone wants to put a clock on that, that is ridiculously easy. So a simple lift won't necessarily fix it. So you have to combine your techniques. Okay? So if it side bends well, rotates well to that side, that's not hard, is it? Come back. And then you reverse it. And there you go. And then whatever you've done, you test. And again, there's more to that than there was before. Curl your body forward for me, please. Up you come. And again, up you come. Around here, he's tilting to the right. Curl forward one more time. And my left arm is rising. Close your eyes, please. And now it's not. So the problem is between his eyes and where my hands sit. So go up a bit more. Curl forward, up you come. Again, my left hand's rising. Close your eyes, do it again. And now it's not. Eyes open. Curl your head forward, please. I'm up between the shoulder blades. Close your eyes, do it again. And it's still there. So, he has a tilt right up between the shoulder blades. About the fifth dorsal, fourth dorsal. Turn your head this way, please. And this way. Now, that rises both ways as he turns his head. I didn't say it was going to be an easy case, did I? And again, curl your head forward. Up you come. Yeah. So he tilts to his right, above the area that I found earlier on, and he tilts to the left and rotates to the left with the area I found first. So around fourth on the fifth goes left, left, and on the third on the fourth goes the other way. So how do you fix it? Well, in his case, I don't. Yeah? Let it go. Because I'm not convinced that the problem lies there, because I haven't tested him when he's standing, and I haven't tested the effects of moving his arms around. More long levers. Effortless, woolly, vague. Curl your head forward, please. And that got rid of that. And again, and it got rid of that as well. There we go. And that's still nice and loose. Is this ridiculously easy? Yeah, it really still is. about just simply giving the ribs a rock, just loosening the tissue. I do say if this is too much for your head, by the way.
Okay.
So, and now I test the right. That's nice and slow. It goes a long way down. Yeah? So it's a nice smooth curve. This way, still likes buckling to the left, but not as much as it did. There's not so much difference. So in his case, the movement across the ribs has a great deal of effect. Again, I'm no fan of just saying, oh, that little bit's in trouble, give it a whack. Not difficult, but not necessary either. And that's a very, very simple lever. Let it go. Loose and easy. First checking the shoulders to see if they are contributing to your problem. But curl your head forward, please. Up you come. And again, up you come. Close your eyes, do it again. But in his case, he's got a whacking great twist in the middle of his neck. Can you stand up for me? If you come round here, they may be able to see it. Tight. And curl your head forward. Yay! Huge twist. Close your eyes, do it again. Huge twist. Right below, just in case. Curl it forward, up become nothing. And again, nothing. It's all happening here in the middle of his neck. Now, do I crack his neck? No, I don't. Lay down for me, please. Down the chest. Because have I tested it laying? That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Other end. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Bit in the middle. That's okay. That's rubbish. That's okay. That's okay. So, it doesn't take much, does it? Hock off. And curl your head forward and no twist. Sit on the table again so I can do the time. So, just because he's got a twist in his neck, curl forward, please. Focus, close your eyes, do it again. And again, eyes open, curl forward, up you go. Close your eyes, do it again. Yeah. Somewhere he has another problem above the area I'm testing. It's not in the neck. It's somewhere in his thorax. It's a hell of a lot less than it was before. But you can spend all day looking for, try and trace things down and find it's in his knee. On your back, please. Or in this case, his left ankle. Whee! That's nicer. There they go. His knees hyper-extend is appropriate 3 inches. Those are quite nice for the 40 degrees swing in each direction. Again, you don't tend to want to whack the knee just because it's not allowing hyperextension before you've made the hips do their bit. That one is a little bit of a stretch. You can do it like this, or you can do it like this, depending on how fat you are. There we go. So, I compare the two. They both hyperextend nicely, evenly now. Sit up again, please. Face again. And let it go. And that's dead easy. That's dead easy. It wasn't the left was too mobile. It wasn't the right wasn't mobile enough. Kettle forward, please. And that got rid of the twists. So, just because it's twisting doesn't mean you hit it. Of it. Okay, patients have elbows, shockingly. And there they go. The continuation of the elbow goes all the way down to the fingers. So, there they go. If it beds in nicely as you turn it around, there you go. Lean back, and the wrist clunks beautifully. Then there really shouldn't be much you do with it, but you can. Just hyperextend and give it a rock. And as I'm rocking it, his wrist is articulating under my thumb. If I want to look at that radial head, it's there. Nothing special, not going to whack him with it. Let's try this one in contrast. See, he has healthy forearms, he does exercises and things like this. There we go. Shame about the mess he made of his finger. So, traction articulation and compression along the shaft. Pull it apart, give it a wiggle, give it a twist, and then squeeze it. That wiggle and twist can go on all the way down the arm, depending on what you find. Not pretending that is any more than simple tests. But people think that osteopaths don't work with peripheral joints, but we do. Clicks and clacks don't mean a great deal, but has that changed the tissue sense? Has it changed what you feel? Yeah. Not going to shout about it, but it's a very simple way of relaxing the tissues. And don't forget, once you've dealt with the bony bits, if that's your want, those soft tissues, all those fibrous tissues there, don't kill your thumbs, use your fingers. Yeah? Either way, are they sore? All of it affects. If he works a lot of gripping, as I did recently, just stretching along its fibrous tissue, loosens the tissues of the hand. Palpating the abdomen. There you go. It's not digging, it's not trying to stick your fingers in, it's just laying your hands on and feeling. What do you feel? Well, you'll feel more by waiting and relaxing. Now, some people like the knees up. Personally, yeah, it's alright. But I can clearly feel his gut squirming around, and if I want to do anything with it, all I have to do is linger. You're an irritant, so it's a skin contact. The tissues underneath will respond. So take your time. Don't dig. At the same time, there are techniques you can use, which, like the famous liver pump, you lift and compress and lift and compress and lift and compress, and then you introduce a shake. Okay, so you stimulate the organ that way. Equally, if you get to somewhere like picking the midpoint between the ziphistone and the belly button, you've got the ability to inhibit for the solar plexus. Easy peasy. Hold on, wait till it changes. Don't have to get exotic about it. If you take a line along from the line of the solar plexus across to the rib on the right hand side, you can frequently feel a little ridge, and that's the surface reflex associated with bile duct, possibly, who knows. All I know is that if you pull up on it and wait for it to relax, what are you doing? You're not anywhere near the bile duct, you're near the muscles that lie over that reflex area of the body. We don't have a problem with this from the back. We regularly put our fingers on an area and say, that's associated with that muscle or that limb. So what's different on the front? None whatsoever, as far as I can see. You get someone with a nice stomach ulcer, you'll certainly feel a ridge. Well, you put your fingers aside and just wait for the tissue to change. And when they change, leave it alone. You've done your job. It's down to his body now to do the rest. Line your side, please, face the camera. In this case, I've decided he's terribly constipated. Yeah. So, you can work your fingers. Now, this is sort of the only time I would be digging in. Yeah. You'll assume I've already done the bits around the pathway of the colon. Yeah. Frequently, you're dealing with an atonic, little John's call it an atonic cecum. That's getting down there. But later research showed that it was not so much atonic cecum as a spastic ascending colon. And lifting this up changes the tension here frequently when it's a problem. If it's not a problem, you don't need to do it. Equally, here, you can push it to the midline. It doesn't take much, but just sitting on it and waiting for it, you're dealing with a reactive organism. You don't have to be spectacular. I'm not finding embryonic kidneys along his line or something like this. You're just feeling to produce change. And that is really what we do in patients in all aspects of treatment. Doesn't mean you can't crack and crunch things. I saw a piece recently, someone said, long lever people do it because they can't crack. Yeah, but take that as an opinion. You're welcome to it. But clicks and clacks are easy. Getting the change out of the patient, that's much more fun.
Thank you.
So we've got some questions.
Right,
Here for Gary.
Hello there.
I've got a question from Amanda. Do you use BA?
BA, yeah, all the time, every day.
I assume someone's asked that because that wasn't what was in your video. But that's your go-to, is it? Body adjustment?
No, I'm going through aspects of, yeah. That's what I've been using for the last, 37, 38 years.
What?
According to this, my internet connection is unstable. Wonderful.
Sorry, Gary, what's your go-to the last 37, 38 years?
Body adjustment.
Okay. Okay. Someone else has asked if you could do a simple explanation of Friet.
That's got to be Zoe. Yeah. Okay. Friet's so-called laws are a tool to make you develop. So Friet came up with sets of movements by observation during the 1920s, and he noted that if you straightened a curve in the spine, that when people say extend and flex, that was for the curve, straightening and exaggerating the curve. So if you straightened a curve largely talking about the lumbars and the dorsals here. The ligaments took control, and the only way to bend sideways was to rotate into the direction you wanted to bend. So rotation had to precede side bending. So that was pretty much the standard approach. Most people that come in with twists in their back come in with that type of pattern, as far as I'm aware. When the body's in neutral, when the bodies of the arch are in neutral, then it acts as a pile of blocks. If you bend to one side, it rolled, the vertebral bodies roll round to the other side. That's about as basic as you get for Friat. Those are the only two worth remembering. Once you talk about hyperextension and hyperflexion and all the rest of it that he talked about, it isn't really worth worrying about. That's the bit of Friat you need. And then you just use those tools and explore bodies. The problem with Friat is that he tried to explain it in terms of bones, and it's not a bone thing. And his book, Osteopathic Technique, came out in 55. And by 56, fluoroscopic x-rays showed that the spine, that the vertebral bodies didn't do what Friat presumed they did. He interpreted what he found on the surface of the body in terms of bones. So Friat's wrong, but Friat's right. It works if you put your hands on the body. Any more? I think it's about as simple as you can get for Friat.
Yes, it's always a complicated subject in during the teaching. Yes.
I think it might be complicated to talk about it, but you put your hands on people, it's not complicated.
Yes.
I mean, the tests I was doing on my son there, and as I say, he is a bit of a complicated case. Which way is it bending? Which way is it twisting? It's simple as that. You just use it as a way of filtering information. The body is stuffed full of information. We just have to use models. Models aren't true. They're just ways of looking at things.
How did you come to osteopathy, Gary?
You've done up until now. Yeah, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Everything you've done up until now pushes you into doing what you're going to do next. So I had an abnormal childhood, fell out of a window, crushed my skull, was paralyzed. And apart from the original brain surgery, I discovered that as a child growing up, the medics didn't actually know everything. All my friends thought, doctor was God. And I knew personally they weren't. So my wife hurt her back. The treatment at the time being offered was spinal surgery. And I got her to do some sit-ups. That fixed the back. About 5 years later, the problem was beyond a set of sit-ups. And Jamie Taylor was based in Twickenham in those days. He sorted it out in 3 weeks. The hospital had been trying for 9 months. So he said, why don't you think of going into osteopathy? And I said, what is it, a 6-month course or something like this, weekend thing? He said, no, it's at least 4 years in full-time work. And so I said, so there's a school somewhere, Chelsea way or something. He said, well, you're a martial artist. If you want to learn, who do you go to? I said, well, you go to a master. He said, well, there's a master of osteopathy. He's opened his own school in Maidstone. Go and see him. So I did. And JW said, come in next year because this term's already started. So here's a book list. Go around, read. Book list was, read anything you could. And by the time I got there the following year, there were 4 of us in the year. One immediately left because the qualification wouldn't let him practice in America. And I stayed on for 5 years there, because after 4 years, osteopathy was being looked at by, or the osteopathic schools were being looked at by the King's Fund. And I was going to be the only graduate. So it was deemed it'd be a good idea if I stayed on for an extra year. And I was paying my way through college by running a little newsagents. So I couldn't sell it at the time to become an osteopath. So I said, yeah, I'll do another year, which is what I did.
Are you pleased?
And then hung around for another couple of years.
Are you pleased?
Am I pleased?
To Maidstone, Gary?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone's school was telling them, "Oh yeah, you're the best. You're nobody else stands a ghost," and very, very divisive. And JW was no different. He was saying, oh, "You're doing classical, all the rest are modernists." But the lecturers we had that came from other schools were woeful. I mean, they were putting across, I mean, they were new grads, for God's sake, but they were putting across what they'd been taught at school, their curriculum. And it was terribly limiting. Do this. Oh no, for God's sake, that's a red flag. You can't move. It was all about limiting you. And Wernham was the other way around, was just go and explore, go and find out what you can do and what you can't do. And I was very lucky. The newsagents that I ran when I was at school had the local GP was listed as the worst GPs in the district, and we were the second worst district in Britain. So they were awful. And so I'm behind the counter, and the first brain tumor I diagnosed. I was a third-year student. Woman comes in, say, I've got a terrible headache. So I asked her about the pattern of her headache, and yeah, you need a CT scan, love. A man came in. Hi there, you really do look like you've got liver cancer. Why on earth? She just started to chat to people. One of the guys in the year below me rented a flat across the road, and one Sunday he came in, and I'm working behind the counter, and I've got textbooks open, and he said, how can you get the results you get in school? Learning around serving people cigarettes and papers. And a chap came in the room. I said, look, there's a lovely example of Parkinsonism. And the student said, oh yeah, good. You wouldn't realize it. I said, yeah. He's got everything you'd expect of a characteristic Parkinson's case. And the customer turned around and said, Parkinson's, what do you mean? I said, well, you've got the mask-like face, the pill rolling, look at the way you're walking. And he said, but the GP's been worrying for the last 6 months. What on earth's wrong with me? Can't work it out. Pathology was coming in the door all the time. They were really good. What was the one they used to love?
Was that in the door of the clinic or in the door of the newsagents or both?
No, of the newsagents. The local GP absolutely loved. Sorry?
Did you get them up on the counter?
Yes, I did. I did that on, oh God, asthmatic kids. Patients used to people used to bring their kids in and say, my child is having an asthma attack. Yeah, I'll get her on the counter. CD adjustments, great fun. Yeah, one of the things that the local GP loved was gout. He used to diagnose, oh, you got gout. Never did a blood test, but you got gout. Stick him on the appropriate medication, name escapes me at the moment. And so as the local newsagent, I'm fixing people's gout, stubbed toe, twisted ankle, twisted knee, and saying, look, it's not gout, for God's sake. Fun though, but it meant I saw a lot more of the stuff that normally go into GPs that you didn't see in student clinic. because the student clinic was largely chronic patients.
So a good thing to do then would actually be sit outside your local hospital and watch people walk in and out.
Ever sat in A&E?
Well, we're not allowed to these days, are we? We're not allowed to.
But in the days when you could, cut your hand, go and sit in A&E. Been there, and my wife sent me, to be fair. I said, I want some steri strips, that's all. No, go to hospital. Okay, yes, dear. I know my place. Anyway, you sit there and you watch people hobbling, and there's someone trying to sort out an ankle, and
Gary, someone is asking, what is the best piece of advice you got from Mr. Wernham?
Oh God, no. One thing, no chance. Life is too short. Best bit of advice about anything from JW. Grow a belly. He said you'll need it. When I started, I was a skinny little, I used to fight at 12 stone. And these days I'm a waddling 16. And he said, you'll be able to put people on your belly and do so many things. It was right. Easy technique.
Well, that's
best bit of advice. Best bit of advice from Wernham at all was, if you're having a row with your wife, she's right. Apologise first. Yes. Because the one who apologised first is right. Yes. And that's about it, to be fair. Osteopathically, best bit of advice osteopathically was about what he called iron hands. And this is advice for graduates, not students. I've written something about this in teaching group just recently. The idea of a modernist compared to a postmodernist. Students should be certain of what they're trying to do. Graduates learn that there is no such thing as certainty. Yeah, osteopathy can be done robotically. JW used to say you could learn a body adjustment in 20 minutes, but to apply it meant you had to learn everything else. And you and I know it's all about adapting to the patient. My son demonstrating on the table. Yeah, of course I know his history, and no, there's no point in dragging it out now, but there's lots of things I wouldn't do in a body like that. So you modify what you're doing by constant feedback.
So that old thing, meeting the patient where they are, working out what that particular patient needs. Yeah.
And also, I mean, one of the classic errors that we make, especially the new grads, is you chase a reflex around the body. Oh, this is happening. I'll just click, done that. Oh, hang on a minute. It's happening over here now. Click, and so on and so forth. I went out to a home visit. You know the old saying, multiple sclerosis and tertiary syphilis can mimic any neurological condition. Yeah?
That's an old saying.
Of course it is. Good Lord, you're not old enough, are you? Clearly.
I must have one growing up.
No, you stupid boy. I mean, God, it's basic neurology. I went out to a home visit to a lady with later stages of multiple sclerosis. And she was in a state. And I'd only seen her probably twice. She was too ill to come into college, and I was the one that got sent out to all the home visits. And I spent some time sorting things out with her, and I just kept coming up with, and I said, where's that? Where on earth did that come from? I'd sorted it out a minute ago, and now something else is happening. Yeah. And after 45 minutes, I went, it's reflex. I'm an idiot. Neurologically, I'm chasing the reflex around your body. And she said that Barry Savory had used to be her practitioner, and it had taken him an hour and a half to do the same thing. And there I was, I don't know, third-year student, something like that. But yeah, very good. But what else to say? Tertiary syphilis. Ever had a case? Unlikely. I saw lots of them because all the old boys from the First World War that were getting to be very old boys, there was a fair proportion of them that had picked up syphilis in the First World War. And dissecting aneurysm was a big thing. You don't really hear about that many aortic grafts now, but it was very common in the 80s and 90s. And I saw one man who had an aortic graft where the ends were leaking. They just couldn't heal. It was seepage, it's no more than that. I mean, an aorta, when it bursts, blows out of everything. But all I could do was lying on his side and oscillate. And I oscillated him once a week for a year. He was fixed. The body healed. It was wonderful. But I had one patient came in, and the way he was describing his pain, lightning pains down the legs. Heard that one? Yeah. So I thought, socially, his age group, the history of his work and everything else. Would you like to stand in front of that sofa there? Yes. And put your hands out to the side and touch your nose. Yeah. And now do it with your eyes closed. Because as he closed his eyes, because of the destruction of the menisci, he went bang, straight back into the sofa. Trendelenburg's test, I think it's called. Anyway, whatever. I knew the test for it. So I said, who's your GP? I want to do some blood tests before I do anything else. Because he was in a new sexual relationship, and I thought it'd be a good idea to just get him filtered before he infected his partner. Anyway, I knew the GP, so sent him off, rang the GP and said, look, I'm just sending a guy, I'm sure he's got tertiary syphilis. And this GP said, I've not seen a case in 25 years of practice. So I described what was going on. He said, does sound like it, doesn't it? Okay, I'll test him when he comes in. So I said, well, he's on his way up. So about 20 minutes later, I got a phone call from him. Yes, tertiary syphilis, never had a case. That's great. Of course, the guy's got a couple of years to live, but never mind. And the patients were very grateful for that. For a start, they had to use condoms. And they moved down to Brighton. You forget about these things. And then there was a chap that used to lecture at Maidstone for anatomy. He was a masseur in Brighton. And he came up to me one day and said, you are a cocky bastard. He said, who else would think tertiary syphilis on the back of that? He said, if your clinic was in Brighton, right now you'd be swamped with patients.
Oh, I think you still there, Gary? I think we've you've frozen.
I'm afraid so, yeah.
It's not, you're not freezing up because you're in the last stages of tertiary syphilis by any chance, are you?
Could be, yeah. General paralysis of the insane, you mean? Yeah. Well, I managed the insane bit.
I was going to say, if I did ever have a case of tertiary syphilis, I wouldn't admit it on here. Going back to BA.
Yep.
What do you like most about the BA as a tool or a routine?
It's an investigative tool. It's simple as that. JW used to say rhythm, routine, rotation. And I used to add to the students reason. The fourth R was reason. But routine is important because, as you saw on my son, the stuff that was going on his back, hang on, his ankle, pop. If you don't check his ankles every time, why are you going to think about them if you're looking at reflexes in his back? We're not looking at position. We're not looking at lumps. We're looking at activity. So virtually all your work is to make the body move. Your early work anyway. Get them out of pain with that sort of stuff. It's then, once you've done that, Little John said, do get the body's structure moving, doing well, doing all the things it has to do, and then you can start working on the physiology. Now, I think what he meant was the physiology that was left. So body adjustment is really good because you work on the longer lever. You are diffuse with your work. Yeah, you're not trying to say, oh, it's this bit here, whack, there you go, done. Because frequently it isn't. JW used to say, you know, find what you think is the problem, go around the whole body and come back to it's not there.
Often it's a compensation for everything else.
Yeah, totally. How is that person how is it interacting with its world? Because clearly it's not doing it very well. Again, when I first got back into the online osteopathy bits, you know, the forums, I dive in for a couple of years and then come away, do something else. But people were talking about things being perfect. The body is perfectly adapting and all the rest of it. It's not. It can never be. We are animals. We are animals that have evolved. Now, I know there are religions that say evolution doesn't exist and all the rest of it, but my take on that is that that's probably closing your eyes to a lot of changes. If we have adapted to our environment, evolution occurs in, say, generational steps, but our environment changes rapidly. Yeah, we're all sitting on chairs, are we not? Yeah. Have you ever been to any of those demonstrations of the thrones of the Edward II or something? They're chairs. Those chairs were taken round the country when they went to visit the various people. Everybody else didn't sit on chairs. Certainly the general public didn't. They sat on the floor. So our environment changes rapidly, but our bodies changed by generation. So we need that ability to adapt.
We're constantly doing our best to do that and to stay alive, though, aren't we?
Yep, totally. And that's where the osteopath comes in, because you clearly fail to adapt. Let's see what we can do to give you back that freedom to adjust. And that's where the fundamental principle in osteopathy is adjustment. Don't mean you've got to pick lumps up and go like that to them. It means that the body has to be able to adapt to its environment and to cope with its problems.
And to if you want to get a different result, you have to change something. Yeah,
pretty much. But it doesn't mean you have to work on that area. You know, change their feet, change their go away from it, go as far away as possible. And look at this. I'm being Italian. What's that all about?
The Italian trip, that's another matter, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, looking around, you've got to look at what the body can do. Now, sometimes you can't go to the problem. Go somewhere else. See if if you can ease the problem by working somewhere else. And that's why I like body adjustments. You don't rush and track the
working full time.
Yeah. Evening my dotage. If JW can make it to 99 3/4, you know, it's sort of incumbent to me to work till at least I'm 80, for God's sake.
Are you getting up to that yet?
Young man, yeah, I may be old and feeble, but I can still take you.
Well, that's why I'm in Southampton and you're up in Medway somewhere.
Yeah, that's right, totally. You'll be tired by the time you get up here.
Yeah. Gary, we have a question talking about, you know, looking somewhere else in the body. Becky is asking, he's got a patient with an injury in the groin, and he just came back, this injury that it was caused by playing football. What would you look to this groin injury?
The opposite sacroiliac for a start. and obviously the third lumbar. So the lumbar spine's got to be flexible because the legs are hanging off the centre of gravity. So sort your lumbar spine out, and obviously the head and neck, because dominant postural reflex keeps your eyes level. So if the neck's not wonderful, and the lumbar spine's not wonderful, and the pelvis isn't mobile, and the feet are rubbish, and basically do everything else and don't get to the groin until you've done everything else. Because the bit that's in trouble there is overworking. Most of those old groin strains have been, why does the tissue strain? Because it's doing too much.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. It's just, most people will look at the pubic symphysis.
Yeah. Symphysis pubis is part of the pelvis.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Gary, about, I always heard Mr. Wernham saying that the most difficult thing in osteopathy is to provide stability.
Yeah. It's also, it's got to be dynamic. It's all very well being stable, but it's stable within a field. If you look at homeostasis, if you consider parallel lines and the body state oscillates between them, then in health, you're between those lines. In unhealth, you're overlapping the lines. You're unstable. Yeah? Yeah. That's what I just said.
Yes.
Yeah. So your job is to dampen that swing. Yes, that's stability. It's not fixity. It's reliable rhythm.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's why you work with a body adjustment. You work with rhythm.
Yeah. Movement.
Becky has said that she said, "Thank you, Gary," and that's what she was doing. And the opposite sacroiliac.
And it still hasn't fixed it.
Sorry?
And it still hasn't fixed it.
Well, recovery is always a process, isn't it? So
precisely.
So
body's got to heal.
His opposite sacroiliac wasn't functioning, and
but you can't do those things. Third lumbar. But
it was posterior.
The thing is, you can't just do those bits. You just don't go to the SI and go, oh, I'm going to make a mobile SI. What's his name? Talking of Brighton, there was an old boy that, one of the contemporaries of Wernham, he was a doctor that came into osteopathy. Stoddard, thank you. One of the guys went to pick him up for a conference in London, and the chap concerned had a bee in his bonnet about pelvic adjustments. So he tried to talk to Stoddard all the way on the train and saying, look, if you adjust both sides at once, if you take both parts of the pelvis, instead of just trying to do one bit, take both innominates, you'll get a result. You don't have to worry about the complexities of sacral movement, which I don't agree with personally, because I use Chicago's quite often. But that's just maybe. You do remember the Chicago technique? Please say yes. Good. Sometimes you say a stills, and people say, what? I said, do you always do a lift off after your stills? I mean, JW was known for saying, the only times he used lifts were in, I don't know, think of someone like Harrods. But
when the stairs aren't working.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So, but I used to find that if I did a stills, then a lift off generally sorted out the resultant extension lesion that was sitting at the bottom of the lumbar spine, that it was not visible until you sorted the pelvis out with the stills. But then you need stills but when both the sacrum and the innominate are lifting on the same side, eyes open and eyes closed. So you tend to narrow your range of use of such techniques, but they're valid enough. So that's an old person's response.
People will prefer different techniques depending on you know, their body shape and how big their belly is and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you work around what helps you. Don't push. Don't overuse your thumbs. Don't. That's not good. And working with your hands like that, yeah, they're soft. They're relaxed. They're not pistons. And you don't dig. They're not shovels. You've never heard of a Stills, can you explain? Yeah. Stills pelvis? The argument was, Jackson wrote about it in the yearbook. He did an article on it, one of the yearbooks, but I don't agree with the way he described it either. Essentially, if you have your hands on the pelvis and you're cradling the innominates, the patient bends forward, one of the hands rises. Okay, then shift your hands closer in, so your thumbs are on the sacrum, and the patient bends forward again. The sacrum rises on the same side as the innominate. Then that suggests that everything's happening on the opposite side, that one side is stuck. Yeah. Repeat the test with the eyes open and with the eyes closed, so that there's no other obvious factors above that are causing that as a reflex result. And then you just lay the patient across the table, get them to turn their head towards you, but let the head drop so that there's a rotation of the spine towards you. You reach across the body, pick up the knee, you stabilize the innominate that you wanted to move, the so-called stuck side, the bit that's rising, and you pull across the body with the patient's knee. You bring their one leg across the other, making sure they keep the other leg on the floor. That's a standard Stills. Nice, easy, gentle rocking technique. I demonstrated it for the Guild of Osteopaths once, and Alan Clements had done some postgrad training with me. And the first time I demonstrated for him, he stood right up next to me. And I said, "You've seen this technique before?" He said, "Oh, yeah, fine." So I did it, and the patient's foot smacked him in the head. So at this demo at the Guild of Osteopaths, there's a girl come up right next to me. And I've turned to her and said, "You've seen this technique before?" And she said, "Yes." And Alan's come in and said, "No, you haven't." But yeah, and then having done that adjustment of the innominate, sitting down, do a simple lift for the fifth lumbar, and that tends to be all you ever need. When you've got anything else, you can find it. That's about the closest I get to specifics.
Closest you get to
the internet connection is still unstable.
Yeah.
Say?
Sorry, that was the closest you get to what, Gary? That
being specific, saying, "Oh, if I do this, I'll do that."
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, a lot of people worry about neck technique. It's something like anything else, it can be done badly. But wind is that generally people haven't got a way of analysing it. On that little bit of appalling video, does the head rotate each direction the same? Does it bend and buckle the same direction, the same degree each side? And is that what the last patient did, and so on and so forth? And then change the angle. Somewhere in fundamentals, JW quotes Little John as saying the cervicodorsal is tilted backwards, forwards, and whatever. I don't remember it these days. And that's why, because he's describing the movement at each level. But when he describes it as a CD, you think, "Oh, the CD does all of this, does it?" No, each part of it does a different pattern of movement. And so if you lift the head, you're looking for movement, that's all. But a lot of people don't do those tests, and so they can't then assess what they've done. They just pick it up, say, "Oh, it's a bit lumpy. Yes, okay, I'll crack this," or JW taught me to stretch it this way or something. All those things are good, but you must test afterwards to see if you've got a response. Otherwise, you'll never improve your technique.
What do you think of the sort of modernist osteopathic view that we can't rely on what we feel?
No, that's postmodernist.
Lesions don't. Lesions.
No. That's postmodernist. Modernist is what I learned. Classical is modernist. Have you not read the article, dear boy?
Which one's that?
The one of thousands. I dribble on there quite a lot, but on teaching group, I actually was doing it possibly yesterday, today. The difference between a classical education and which I think is best described as modernist, and an education that involves jazz. Jazz is an exploration of what the patients present. Yeah, you're a big boy, you're graduated, you go out and explore. Yeah, that's how you develop. So if you have a classical education, and what JW gave us was a classical education, this is true, this is it, learn this. Yeah, that's good. It gives you foundations. As a student, that's the way you work. As a graduate, you don't. You realize the more you do, the more you know you don't know anything. One of my postgrad students once said that to my son when my son started training with me. He said, when I first came to work with your dad, I thought I knew all of osteopathy. I come out the BSO, got a good degree, you know, and I discovered I knew nothing, which is quite useful. Because if you don't realize you know nothing, you'll never learn anything. No. But what are they learning now? No, I don't teach them. Does that answer your question? Or have I just done an old person's bit? No, fudged it a bit.
That's good. I just wanted your view on that, really. You know, I wonder how the people who say we can't feel anything, you know, somatic dysfunction doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah. Again, that's a common error. Yeah, it's a straw man bit. Again, go back to Little John. What was that? What's that? Gobbledygook. Easily. The anatomy does not determine the physiology. You get someone take a picture, take an X-ray, and they say, this has not been changed. You've treated, and yet the condition of the body is the same. No, we're not treating bones. We're not putting lumps from one place to another. We're treating the body as a whole, the rhythm, the state of tissue, the fluid flow, the lymphatic flow. Yeah. For example, you look at congestion of the lung. Yeah, you've got fluid in the lung. What drains the lung? Well, the left heart. What drains the left heart? The body. So if you treat the body, you drain the lung. Yeah, you reduce the peripheral resistance. You reduce the threat to the output of the left heart. Therefore, it clears easier. Therefore, the suction pulls it through, and you clear the. Don't say suction. Someone's going to say there's no such thing as a suction, but never mind. But you clear the lung easier. Yeah. So you don't say, hang on, you haven't changed the lung. You haven't touched the lung. The structure hasn't been touched. No, but everything around it has, because the fluid is continuous. There's no break. There's no, oh, sorry, this is the venous bit. This is an arterial bit. It's a continuous flow. So if you're affecting your toes, you're affecting the heart. Yeah. What we're not doing is saying this bit of bone was what we treated. No, it wasn't. It was a segment. It was a spine. It was a conjoint lever. It was a body. And as a result, you've produced change in that area. You've changed the patient's symptoms. You've changed the test signs, but you haven't changed the structure at all. Make sense?
Yeah.
Or am I still going round and round in circles?
Yeah, no, not at all. It's you know, that is the big thing, isn't it? You know, trying to affect we use anatomy to affect physiology, physiological physics.
Yeah, physiological physics, but the relationship it involves causal chains that are very, very tenuous. Yeah. It's not a matter of local events. Things happen locally. Things happen locally, but things happen globally. Hence, the all input has an effect on the organism, not on the bit. So whether you're using long levers or short levers or psyche, talk therapies, you're changing that organism, not bits. Therefore, we're all classical osteopaths.
Yeah. So we're about 10, 15 minutes over time now, Gary.
I'm terribly sorry. Can I go home now?
That's not your fault. It's really interesting. Everyone's still sat here listening. So am I, and so's Diego. But we kind of have to wind it up somewhere. Otherwise, we'll still be here tomorrow morning. I can sense that.
Yeah, like I say, I dribble on the teaching group all the time. Have a look if you haven't read it before.
Yeah, if it is a really good Facebook group, the teaching group, and anyone who wants their CPD certificate, if you can email, is it icofrontdesk@gmail.com? There you go.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, you will get a certificate PDF for this seminar. But thank you very much, Gary. It was a real pleasure to hear you and to talk to you, because we all met you through Facebook teaching group, and it's very nice to talk to you. So maybe this is so interesting. We have to leave it for next year for another webinar. So
we're all that old.
Yes. No. But thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you everybody who came to this webinar, and we hope to see you soon in the next one. Robert, which is the next one?
Next week. It's next Thursday evening. We have an interview with Chris Campbell about his new book, John Martin Littlejohn: A Clash of Three Cultures, I interviewed him, and it was absolutely fascinating for me, listening to what Chris Campbell had to say about John Martin Littlejohn. And so we talked about what John Martin Littlejohn was like, and his what he was like as an individual, and the sort of how he worked. And also we went through all these different things that Kirksville have said about him, and other people have said about him in the 1935 bill. And it was a really fascinating interview for me to do, and it's really worthwhile listening. And so that's really worthwhile having a listen to next week. And also, I'd like to say thank you very much to Pindy at OsteoAl for letting us use her platform. It's incredibly kind of her. Thank you, Pindy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.